Stephen Kinnock. He's a member of the Brexit Select Committee's Labour MP and Remainer. Good morning to you.
Morning,
Good
Julia.
morning. Well, look, there seems to be a little bit more of I suppose, a little bit of a skip in the step of the likes of Daniel Hannan than there are for Remain campaigners like yourself. Are we now more likely to see Brexit than we were yesterday?
Well, I think it's yet another unicorn in the Brexit fantasy forest. The Brady Amendment is a farce because the EU has said, I don't know how many times they've said it, how many more times they have to say it, the withdrawal agreement is locked down. They're not going to reopen it. The backstop is, of course, a very important part of the withdrawal agreement. So it's not going to happen. And I'm afraid what we'll have is another sort of 2 weeks of humiliation of our Prime Minister going off to Brussels, cap in hand, trying to get something she's been told countless times she's not going to get. She'll come back to Parliament on the 13th of February empty-handed, and we will be back to square one. So, I mean, I think it's a sort of it's a kind of almost a nightmare. At some point, I'm sort of hoping somebody will pinch me and wake me up, but I can't believe that our government is still living in this fantasy land.
So you're saying we're back to square one on February the 14th, and this is all very likely that the European Union would do this. At which point, what happens? Because, of course, we did see the Cooper Amendment that you were backing. That did fall by the wayside, particularly because of a number of Leave Labour MPs, who Brexit heroes, as I'll call them from now on, voted against that. But we did see also the Tory Amendment from Dame Caroline Spelman, which basically, without mandating the government to prevent a no deal and providing a structure for it to happen, basically said we don't want a no deal. Now that did pass, so we know that there is a majority against a no deal, but whether or not there are enough MPs who are willing to, perhaps in the case of Tories, leaving the cabinet, leaving their government ministerial jobs to fall on their swords to try to stop that actually through parliamentary process is another thing. Is it your understanding that in the event that no deal does become the only option that is on the table, if the EU won't talk, that there will be enough Tory ministers who will come over to your side to prevent no deal from happening?
Well, I certainly hope so. I'm part of the Norway Plus group. It's a cross-party group, been working together for a very long time with Nick Bowles, Oliver Letwin, a range of other Conservative colleagues, and we've always felt that there is a majority in the House for a political declaration on the future relationship, which solves the Northern Irish backstop, which keeps us closely aligned with the EU, but takes us out of the political institutions, out of the political project. And I think when we get to that point yet again, where the Prime Minister's mythical alternative arrangements for the backstop have clearly not worked, we're once again left with the one option on the table that is both acceptable to Parliament and to the European Union rapidly and smoothly, and that is Common Market 2.0, you know, the Norway Plus option.
But again, with free movement, which you know Eurosceptics won't be able to accept, and most Leave voters won't be able to accept.
Well, we've got Articles 112 and 113 of the EEA agreement. 112 is the emergency brake. Any country can unilaterally pull the emergency brake if you're a signatory to the EEA agreement, and then you can renegotiate a long-term arrangement on free movement of labour.
That's not going to fly.
On the table.
I can tell you right now, as a Leave voter, that's not going to fly. The British people wanted to have say over their borders.
Well, that's what an emergency brake gives you, and a unilateral right to suspend the free movement of labour. But I've always
for a temporary period while you renegotiate. And as we know from the EU, those 4 pillars of freedom are not negotiable.
But they cannot. The EU would not be able to force us to reopen our borders. It is a unilateral right that we have. They can take retaliatory measures. So they would, of course, suspend free movement of labour of Brits going to the EU. But I think that's fair enough. You can't have your cake and eat it. I wish that was a lesson that a few people had learned throughout this whole process. I felt that 5248 was a mandate to move house but stay in the same neighbourhood. Many people on the doorstep in my constituency and others I've spoken with say, look, you know, I voted to join the common market in the 1970s, and somewhere along the line the EU became something I hadn't voted for. This takes us back to those fundamentally pragmatic economic relationship with the EU without all the political paraphernalia political project and European integration, and that's always been the right way, and there's always been a majority in the House of Commons for that, in my view.
Just finally, and very briefly, if you would, we've seen this situation, a bizarre situation. We've got Fiona Onasanya, was a Labour MP, lost the whip, of course, after she was convicted of perverting the course of justice. She lied to police about her speeding ticket. Yesterday, she was jailed immediately for 3 months, yet she's still on the public payroll, still taking her £77,000 a year salary. What is going to happen now? Labour obviously already got the whip, taken the whip off her. Is she going to actually be forced out of Parliament, do you believe?
Yes, I think so. I think there will be a petition for recall. 10% of her registered electors need to sign up to that. It seems to me that we will achieve that number. That will force a by-election, and in that by-election, the Labour Party will win. And I'm afraid Fiona will be no longer a member of Parliament. And it's a pity that it's got to this. I think it's awful for her personally. I'm sure that it's been a really tough time for her. But she should resign. She should no longer be a member of Parliament. If she refuses to do that, we have to have a by-election, and we'll do it that way.
OK, Stephen Kinnock, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Member of the Brexit Select Committee, Remain campaigner himself.